Hi everybody, this is a demo of how to import transactions from online payment systems such as PayPal or Go Cardless. So typically these online systems will have multiple amount columns for each transaction line. There'll be a gross amount, some sort of transaction or processing fee, and a net amount. And you'll typically want to import these into Clubtreasurer as separate transaction lines. So we're going to show you how to do this. We're starting with a blank system, and we'll just go to the import transaction screen as normal. Now you can import your data either by file upload or copy and paste. We're going to use the copy and paste method today because it's easier to follow exactly what we're doing. So let's have a quick look at our source data. So here is a typical CSV file that we've downloaded from our payment system. You see there's many columns on here. Most of these we don't need, but we'll sort that out when we come to do our import. So let's copy our data and back into Clubtreasurer where I paste my data. So moving into the mapping page, we can see Clubtreasurer has already mapped a couple of the columns for us. Date is okay, we don't need time, we don't need time zone. I do want to change the description column though and use a different column. So I'm going to set this one here to do not load, and actually I want to use the name column here as my description. So let me just set that. Now the important point of this data set is that there are three amount columns: a gross, a fee and a net. And on this particular import run I just want to bring across the gross amount. So that's the column I'm going to map to my single amount column. Leave fee and net as do not load. I click next. The data is validated here, so there are just the three mandatory fields: date, amount and details. Okay, and then moving into the draft import page, I can just make a few changes here. Actually most of my imported data here is to do with membership receipts, so I'm going to use that as my default receipt value. There aren't any payment cost codes in this particular case here, so I don't need to change that. And of course if I wanted to, I could use the auto cost code matching here if there was a mixed set of data here, and let Clubtreasurer decide based on historic data which is the best cost code to map my imported data to. That can save a lot of time in many cases here. I won't use this today, but I will check the match member and memberships because I want the system to map the data against my members because it's membership receipts, and I want it to be mapped onto the membership system as well. So let's apply that. Let's bring that data in as draft lines. Okay, and you can see here that it's brought my lines of data into the system. Here's my receipts. Notice there are all the gross amounts there, and there's the cost codes that we put on the system there. I notice actually one of them here was to do with bar sales, so I probably want to change that. So let's just change that to food and drink sales. Okay, and you'll also see as well, if I scroll along here, that the system has also correctly mapped my members for the membership receipts, but of course not the cash receipt there, which is correct. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to save those changes. Okay, and then I can go ahead and import the data into Clubtreasurer. Okay, and here is our receipts and payments page, and we can see we've now got the new receipts and payments now in the system. Okay, with the amount into the bank account as we've seen before. So that's how we get the gross amount in. So the next thing I want to do is bring in the transaction or the processing costs into that. And we basically do this by repeating the import process again, but just bringing in the processing fee. So we go back to our import transactions. We copy, or rather paste, exactly the same data as we used before into the system. Again, the mapping is the same. I just want to make this change as I did before, so that it actually maps the description column to the name column. Okay, but, and importantly but, in this particular run I'm now going to bring the fee amount into the system. So that's the column I'm going to map to the amount column. Bring that forward, and you can see now that we've got date amount, which is now a cost amount. Load that into draft. Okay, and we do the same as we did before. Okay, this time though, of course, I am interested in the payment cost codes. So I'm going to map that in this particular case here to my online payment fee cost code. Okay, now really importantly, I want to make sure that I've unchecked both the auto matching and the memberships, because this time we do not want to bring in the online payment fees against our members. So make sure these boxes are unchecked. Okay, so when I bring the draft lines in now, we can see that this time the payment amount is column has been populated here with the payment amount, and we can check to make sure that they are the right amounts there, online payment fees, and that is correct for all of those. Again, no members in this particular case here, because we're not charging those fees to our members. And you'll notice here as well, just on the little status icon here, it's been changed with a little red cross against it. Now that's saying that it's been validated, but it's also found matching details from the date, the details and the account are the same or identical to an existing receipt line, and therefore these lines here will be added as a transaction line to that batch. This is what we want to do in this case here, because we want to group the processing fees together with the gross amount. Now if you wanted to, you can override that, so you can select the lines or all of the lines here and use the force new receipt and payments button there, and what that will do, that will always then create a new receipt and payment for these lines and not batch them together. So that's a way of overriding that. In this particular case we do want to batch them, so I'm going to uncheck all those lines. Okay, I'm happy with the data that I've got here, so I can go ahead and import that into the receipts and payments. Okay, so now on our receipts and payment page here, we can see that the little icon has appeared now to show that these are multiple transactions here, and sure enough we can see the actual amount has changed now because it's reflecting the cost on that. And if we have a look at our receipt and payments line details view, okay, we can see that there are indeed multiple lines now for each of our receipts and payments that we've just imported there. So if we look at Katie Cow, we can see here she's got the gross amount 22, but there's also a line here for the net fee. And if I open that whole batch up, okay, we can see the total amount for that line is 1996, two transaction lines. Okay, and here are the details below.